All right, everyone, welcome back to The Deep Life. And today we have a very special guest, Rick Salmoron. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Welcome back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Rick. We are just chomping at the bits to talk to you because you are a financial advisor. And to our audience, that may sound a little bit strange. That's not typically a guest that we have on, but what you spoke to Dan and I about being a student of personal growth in this lifetime just struck our attention. And you had mentioned to us that being a financial advisor, one of the main questions that you receive is, what's the best investment for me to make?
Yep.
Great question.
Yep.
And surprisingly, your answer is a little bit unique in that it is self-esteem.
Yep.
So the light bulb went off. We were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. We can't wait to dive deep with you. But let's lay some groundwork and foundation first. If you don't mind, give us a little background onto who you are. And have you always been a financial advisor and a student of life, as we all are? And how did the notion of self-esteem begin to emerge within maybe yourself personally and then professionally?
Happy to address all of that as best I can. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I'm an independent financial advisor, and I've been that for almost all of my professional career.
Okay.
I actually, in my lifetime, however, people ask me, when did you start this business? How did you get into this? And the answer is that I was 8 years old in Oklahoma City, where I was born and raised. It was a Saturday morning. I'll never forget this. This was 50 years ago. My mother approached me as I'm having breakfast at the kitchen table. She places her hand on my left shoulder and she says, "Rick, today is going to be a very special day for you." And I said, "Why, Mom?" She said, "Because today I'm going to bring you to a place called a savings and loan, and we're going to open up a savings account for you." I didn't really know what that meant. So I asked her, "What does that mean, Mom?" She replied, "See, son, if you allow them to keep your money, they will pay you money for keeping your money." So at 8 years old, that still didn't quite register, but what was good for my mom was good enough for me. So I dropped my spoon and my Lucky Charms. We went into the car, we drove to the savings and loan, and I proceeded to empty my pockets, several coins, several weeks of allowance, just spinning on the counter. There was $10 there. And my mother matched that with another $10. So I opened my first savings account at a very tender age with $20. Now, it wasn't until 90 days later, I received my first statement in the mail. And that $20 grew to $20.15. I couldn't believe it. Seriously, all I had to do was just leave it there and do nothing, and it will grow. And that was the reality. And ever since that, a switch turned on that I didn't really know at the time, but a switch turned on inside myself that sparked a series of behaviors, of habits that I incorporated throughout my life. I started my first corporate job out of college, and the first thing that I did was max out on the 401k without even thinking a second thought. And I'd figured out I'll live on whatever I took home, right? My first stock investment was at age 18. I bought my first house at age 22. And I don't say these things to brag. This is just stuff that I did. This was automatically part of my DNA. And when I got tired of the corporate America life, I wanted to be my own boss, do something more entrepreneurial, something that it was dependent on, my destiny was dependent on myself and not somebody else. I thought, what can I do? And I noticed this pattern of behavior. Looking back, I was always a saver. I was always careful about how I spent my money and paying attention to that. So I thought, wow, this is easy for me, but I'll bet these are some secrets that a lot of people have no idea about. So I can turn a business into this. And that's exactly what I did in 1990. Gosh, I started this business in 1990 and I opened my own firm in 2001. I say my own firm, you're looking at the company right now. And I've got several clients that I adore and they adore me back, but it's all about, to them and myself, helping them make smart decisions and wise decisions with their money so that their future can be great.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Thank you for kind of giving us that background. So because it seems like you started at such a young age and there was like almost that built in, as you said, behavioral pattern that, a lot of people don't maybe necessarily get, that perhaps didn't have parents that brought them to, I mean, mine certainly didn't.
Mhm.
So where did the self-esteem portion come in? How did that kind of rise? Because you'd think,
Yeah.
I don't know, again, my perspective, if you're saving and investing, you're, doing stocks at 18, you have a house already at the ripe age of 22 years old. That's great. Were you not feeling maybe as fulfilled, or where did the self-esteem kind of jump in?
The self-esteem jumped in many years later, many
Okay.
decades later. In fact, I was never really on a personal growth journey like I am now
Ooh.
until 2017, frankly. It's
Oh,
been
okay.
not too long ago. Now, so that's what, 7 years
Fun.
ago? Now,
Yeah.
I wish it was 27 years ago. However, I'm glad that it wasn't 7 weeks ago, too. I attended my first personal development course. It was a weekend course, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And at that point, my idea of personal growth was listening to a Jim Rohn tape now and again. And I thought, well, that's fine. But when I attended this class, my girlfriend at the time, she suggested, not because she felt like I needed something better or what have you, but she just wanted the best for me. And she said, why don't you attend this class? I did it myself. I've done a lot of other work in this area. You may gain something out of this. And my mouth to her said, yes, I'll go. My heart said, no. I don't
Mhm.
need something like this. I don't want to attend this class. This is a weekend. I could be, watching football or something. Instead, I wanted to support this relationship I had with my girlfriend at the time. So, like I said yes. My heart said no, but with crossed arms, I showed up. The company actually had a policy that if you attended the 3 days and at the end of the 3 days you felt like you got nothing out of it, they would give you your money back. So that's what I plan to do. But I'll attend. What's a weekend? I'll make my girlfriend happy and I'll get my money back. It's like an ultimate win-win situation, right?
Yeah.
So I attended the 3 days, and let me tell you, as you can appreciate, I'm sure, Dan and Elise, when you go into self-discovery and when you realize things about yourself that you're completely oblivious to, it really explains a lot of life results, both positive and also negative, though, right? So at that time, I felt like my life was fine. I didn't need anything more. Business was okay. I had this girlfriend. I was divorced at the time. I was not going to get married again because it was all marriage's fault. It was not my fault, and so on and so forth. But the self-esteem for myself began that weekend class. And I will never forget that experience. I've since gone on to attend other courses. And of course, I'm more careful with the time that I spend. And I'm not listening to so much to music as I used to. I'm now listening to podcasts. I'm listening to people. I'm listening to different ways I can become a better person, right? So the self-esteem really began not too long ago. But I'm proud to say that with the work that I've done, and thanks to my girlfriend, which by the way is now my wife, okay,
Okay, I figured that.
Mister, I'm never getting married again because it's marriage's fault, not Rick's fault, right? That was my attitude. But she's someone that you guys would love to talk to. Let me tell you,
Yeah. Oh,
love to
I'm
talk to
sure.
her. But that's where it began. That's where it began, and it's never ending, as you know and appreciate. It's never ending. It's a bucket of mine. I'll speak for myself, and maybe other people resonate with this, but it's a bucket that I'm constantly wanting to replenish and fill, because a lot of things in life, if you're not practicing the swing, if you're not practicing the work, it does evaporate over time, and our subconscious is so strong and it pulls us into our old habits. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to get into those old habits like like of long ago. I want to replace my old negative habits with better, more revised version habits, right? That will make me a better person.
Yeah. Oh,
that
love it.
resonates so much. I think that's for both of us. We've realized you can't be aware of the things that you're not aware of, and that as soon as you start to realize that there is more, and that you can kind of notice these patterns, and you can shine a light on different aspects of your life, then it becomes almost, I want to say addicting, even though that sounds like it's a bad word, but that's really what it is, or what it's been for me. Is this process becomes addicting. Of like, I want to shine the light on everything. I want to learn all there is to know about myself. And it seems like you've been on a similar trajectory for the last 7 years.
It's kind of like a mini dopamine hit, isn't it? When you discover something new or something, and that feels really good. It feels like you're on the path to something better and something new. And I have a strong appetite for that right now.
Yeah, and I actually love that you use that term. We use it all the time, a dopamine hit, but this is a dopamine hit to discover who you truly are at your essence, instead of possibly what other people tend to use to run away from themselves. Any type of alcohol, drugs, food, and things like that. Those are simply, coping mechanisms. But Rick, I love you're describing that story. And immediately the thought that came into my mind is when you described having that weekend that you sat down and arms crossed, pouting. It's like when the student is ready, the teacher appeared. And what a beautiful kind of time in your life, even though it was maybe later, but at the perfect juncture for maybe a catalyst to even grow your own personal development and your clients as well. Because, you're in finances, we're going to talk about wealth, but that term wealth, it of course can mean money, but it can also mean the wealth of relationships. And I mean, the world that we live in really is relative. We wouldn't be able to experience life without anything. Of course, people are huge catalysts, but that's your relationship to money, your relationship to your body, your relationship to the environment, your house that you live in, your relationship to food, nourishment, your relationship to really your own thoughts. You touched upon, these subconscious patterns and beliefs that typically run our lives that we inherit as young children. And I actually love the story of this 8-year-old boy that was given a foundation that kind of led you almost, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but almost led you to your purpose. And now you're just like digging deeper within that purpose to find out maybe a hidden treasure beneath it that can be beautifully birthed.
Well said. Well put. I agree with that. There's a concept that I learned in this journey called the peace of mind square, and I want to share that with you. Imagine a square, just draw a four-sided square, right? And on each side of the square represents, and this I think would speak to anybody, represents 4 of possibly the most strongest, most important sides of one's life. One is health, physical and mental health. The second one, relationships, whether they be personal or professional, right? The third is contribution, or how you show up in the world, how you give back to the world, and how you give back to the community, and so on. And the fourth is financial and money. And if you take a look at those 4 sides of your life representing by this square, and if you were to be able to rank, how are you doing, in your opinion, on those 4 sides? Give it a score of 1 out of 10. If you're hitting 10 out of 10 on all 4 sides of that square, you've really achieved peace of mind, right? And now, this is my biased opinion, okay? However, I believe that of those 4 sides, there's one that's slightly more important, and that's the money one. That may not be the case with everyone else's opinion, but in my view, when you have a very strong money side of your life, that helps support great health, that helps support great relationships, that helps support contribution to the world, giving back to the charities and the causes that are very near and dear to your heart. It's very hard to reach that 10 out of 10. It's not impossible, but it's hard to reach that 10 out of 10 on the other sides if your money side is not in good shape. it's kind of a chicken and the egg argument. I get that. However, it's that side, the financial side, and I do talk with clients about this on occasion. It's more than just about numbers and savings patterns and all of that, but when you see money as a tool does money bring happiness? Not by itself, but money can create opportunities and help support areas of your life that can create a happy life for you, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It does. I have a question,
Yeah.
kind of definition wise, because when you had, like I said, posed the self-esteem portion of it, it stuck out to me because that's not typically a word that Dan and I use within our vocabulary. So I wanted to ask you, because Dan and I typically will use self-worth a lot. So I wanted to ask, what maybe would be your definition of self-esteem versus self-worth? Are they synonymous? And if not, if there is a differential, explanation would be welcomed here.
I feel like they're pretty synonymous. I see self-esteem as how I feel about myself. Do I like myself? What is my self-estimate? How do I feel about me, about Rick? And when I feel really, really great about myself, I have a level of confidence that carries me forward into paths that I would normally not go down, or make decisions or interact in manners that I feel like that I'm not deserving of. So when I talk about self-esteem, I'm thinking that is as you said in the beginning, if there's one area to invest time and money on, in my view, it's self-esteem. Because whether we recognize it or not, it's the silent partner that's sitting on your shoulder, helping and influence every decision that you make, whether we realize it or not. That is going to happen. What you have for lunch is influenced by your self-esteem. Whether you go to the exercise class or not is influenced by your self-esteem. Money decisions that you make, by your self-esteem. The people that you hang out with, self-esteem. So the daily habits that we do on a day-to-day basis are all driven by our subconscious, which is heavily influenced by how we feel about ourselves, our self-worth, like you put it.
Yeah, so it's like our life is just a projection of how we feel about ourselves in a lot of ways.
It is. If you take a look at your life results, both good and bad life results, they're all a function of the habits day in and day out, the actions that we take and the actions that we don't take translate into our health results. They translate into our relationship results. They translate into our financial results. They translate into our giving back and how the world sees us results, right? Some of these things can be measured. You can, on the money side, you can measure some people use income as their measurement. Some people use net worth as the measurement. And those are valid. Those are valid to use. Another one is your credit score. The credit score is a great example of how your financial habits and behaviors can translate into an actual hard score of in the view of, say, credit cards and loan companies. Are you a good bet or not? Your credit score is a sum of 10 years, maybe longer, of your entire behavior of how you handle your money in that arena. And they're able to measure on a scale of whatever it is, 0 to 900, whether you're a good credit person or not. In just a snap. That's really fascinating to me. So if you think of it that way, that's a way to reflect on what is your self-esteem, and how you handle your money can be a strong reflection of your own personal self-worth. So the credit score is something that can be used as a measurement, the balance sheet, the net worth, and as well as the income. But this is just an example of one of the sides of the square where if you focus on your self-esteem and how to improve upon it, you can see that improve in your life too.
That's a great point about the credit score. As somebody who for a long time was afraid to look at his own credit score, it's cool. I've never really thought of it as that's almost like how the banks and the different corporations are esteeming me,
That's right.
which
That's
is a literal score, which is a
right.
reflection of how I felt about myself, because that's what was influencing
Mhm.
the choices I was making and the patterns of decisions.
It's another version of a resume,
Yeah.
of a financial
Ah,
resume.
Hmm.
I love that. That's very cool. That's a really interesting way to look at it. And this may sound a little philosophical as we tend to do here on the show, but I think life presenting us really with a deeper way to look at our internal mechanisms and how the circumstances of our life are presenting to us. I want to also just make very clear, like, there's no judgment here for anybody who does it.
No.
Dan and
Yeah.
I are not homeowners. Like, we don't own a house. It gives me severe anxiety to actually think about buying a house, and we can
That's
get
fine.
into
Yeah,
that.
it's
But
fine.
but exactly, there's no judgment here. It's also a reflection, possibly, where can I better understand a lack of love, a lack of self-esteem, a lack of worth that is showing up in just one area of my life, giving me, like, kind of knocking at my door. That's why I said the life analogy, knocking at my door. Hey, what's predominantly one of the best human experiences we can have on this planet is to love ourselves. And what a beautiful way to reflect back to us another mechanism saying, hey, you might be off balance here, or this is reflecting a little bit lower. Where could you dive deeper into maybe subconscious belief patterns and things? Do you discuss this type of thing with your clients?
With my clients, no, not really.
Okay.
I
Very
discuss it with
curious.
my wife a lot, and
Okay, yeah.
friends of mine that are in the personal growth arena, and
Okay, sure.
anyone like the two of you, anyone who can appreciate and has had some kind of experience to it. And on the occasion, okay, if I am interacting with someone that I either really have known for a long time or just barely met or something in between, and I can kind of sense that maybe if I can help open that door of, let's talk about some personal growth here for a moment, because sometimes I'm not Bob Proctor, okay, but I can kind of notice sometimes when from the outside in, when someone is acting in a certain manner that could possibly use some personal growth fertilizer. All right, I might open up the discussion, but
Absolutely.
for the most part, it's within a familiar crowd, but rarely with my clients.
Sure. Yeah, no, I just asked that because you're marrying the both so beautifully, so I wasn't
Yeah.
sure, but kind of like you had said, like, this 3-day event
Mhm,
almost maybe was like a catalyst for yourself, just to show for your clients
mhm.
in a much more professional way, but kind of merging that development of self-growth within yourself.
Something I do want to add that you mentioned earlier, at least, was values. When
Mm,
people use their money in ways that are reflective of their values. There's no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. Your list of values in life are going to be different than mine. There might be some similarities, but there will be some differences too. It's like a fingerprint. That's what makes the human race great. We're all not the same. We're very unique, and we have a lot to offer up to the world. Everyone that I meet has got something that I've never heard about or never known before. And that's the great thing about just meeting people, complete strangers at times, right? But when people might ask me, clients might ask me, well, am I spending too much on this or that or the other thing? I say, I'm not the person to answer that question, because you're asking me to pass judgment on what you might hold as high regard and high value. And that's not right for my life, but that may be right for your life too.
mm.
So the values part of our lives is something that we should pay attention to, that we want to live our life with our highest values, right? Whatever our highest values are. However, sometimes I will say that people might have a mental list, or they actually write down, this is what my top 5 values are in life. Yet then I might ask them, well, take a look, if how is your results with these values? Is it great, or do you feel like it could be improved upon? And for those people who say, well, it could be improved upon, then I ask them, okay, well, let's take a look at your money history. Let's take a look at your checkbook, your credit card transactions, and let's see where you're spending your money.
Mm.
And is where you're spending your money in alignment with what you say as your top 5 values? And if there's a disparity there, then maybe you found a spot to make a change.
Yeah.
To make a better life. So I offer that up for the discussion.
Yeah, we found that I think a lot of people aren't sure what their values actually are, or like you said, they say that, oh, these are the things that I value, but subconsciously they're actually valuing something else more than what they want to be valuing. And it's just another place where you can shine the light. I think we were definitely the same way, and you can as you start to pay attention to all your actions, and probably especially spending money, it points out where you really are valuing things.
That's doesn't it? It feels kind of weird sometimes when I'll stop myself and I just did this a couple of minutes ago, and that really wasn't Rick. That really wasn't me. Who showed up then the last couple of minutes? Who was that person? Because that really wasn't me, or it wasn't the person that I want to be. Right. And we're all, this happens to all of us from time to time. We're not perfect. We do things that we shouldn't. We screw up. And at least by being self-aware, that, in my view, is a moment that I don't use those moments to beat myself over the head. I like to use those moments to recognize and realize, wow, that was something that I probably shouldn't have done. And I'm grateful that I'm aware of that now, so that I don't find myself doing the same thing 2 minutes from now too, or tomorrow, or next month, or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Like that awareness gives us the opportunity to choose. Do we want to try to justify and explain away that action and just push it back into the shadow? Or do we actually want to choose differently and become the version of ourselves we want to be?
Where did you all find your personal growth journey? What's that story? I'm curious to know.
Dan definitely pioneered our self kind of development journey. Like I was saying before we hit record, we've been together 19 years. So we met in high school. And you can imagine the different iterations and version of Elise and Dan, both individually and as a couple, many life and death cycles. It certainly has not been easy, but it has been I like to use the word, a beautiful destruction of just, decomposing and then growth and allowing ourselves what we needed. But Dan I feel like I'm Dan's guinea pig. As you know, he's a holistic lifestyle coach and personal trainer. So he's always kind of pioneered our health and wellness journey.
For me, it all started physically as trying to be in shape and as an athlete. And then I became a personal trainer. So a lot of my interest was in just, becoming the best version of myself I could be physically. And then just over time, just reading, and, there are a few books along the way that really kind of blew my mind and changed the trajectory. I think the first kind of like self-help or self-discovery kind of thing was Self-Reliance by Emerson.
Okay.
And then years later, I read the 4 Agreements, and that was a really big moment for me where I started to shift the way I see the world. And then
he tried to get me to read it. And have you ever read it?
This is a great story.
Which one?
The 4 Agreements.
Yeah, I've read the 4 Agreements.
Yeah, this was probably maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Probably. So I'd say that was when my kind of self-discovery phase started. And Dan had read, he's like, you've got to read this book. And I was like, all right. We were on a plane. I remember we were in California coming to Massachusetts where our family was. And I opened the first page, and that first line is "Life is a dream." And I was like, what? All right. Like, I humor you, but like, what is this? I closed. I was like, I'm not reading it. I wasn't ready. Kind of like I said, when the student is ready, the teacher appeared. I wasn't ready for that book. And I think it took me a whole year later to read it. And I remember I was in real estate at the time, and I was at an open house, and it was very, very slow. And I read the entire book within the 4 hours of the open house. It just blew my mind and made so much sense. It was like I felt the truth of it.
Yeah.
And then it was just
Mhm.
that I think was the catalyst
Yeah.
for me as well.
And that was kind of like what I was saying before, was like once you start to realize that there's more, and then it was I couldn't get enough and started
Yeah.
trying to read everything and get really into Joe Dispenza and
Yeah.
David Hawkins.
A
A lot of great
Yeah,
teachers.
there's always more. And when going back to that peace of mind analogy that I spoke about earlier, when if a person finds himself scoring a 10 out of 10 on the four sides, well, what's the next 10 after that? There's always a new expansion that's, well, it's impossible to hit 10 on all four sides. Well, it's not impossible, but once you hit there, there's a next 10 waiting for you just around the corner. What does that look like for you?
That's really, that's interesting.
I just think as you're describing that, we use the analogy all the time of like life being like a spiral staircase. And it's like really like this isn't a square, really. It's like as you go around, there's another level, and it's really steps. It keeps going up.
Yeah. Love
Absolutely.
it.
Well, I kind of want to get into it because I don't mind diving a little bit deeper into at least my personal journey with money, because it has been not the easiest and hard, but within the self-development journey, I've just understood, I think, my relationship to it, because I am someone who has struggled with immense low self-worth. I'm just discovering how to love myself. And I feel like I've just done that maybe over the past year, 2 years, if that, and I'm being generous. And values played a big part in this, in discovering that I didn't even truly know what my values were up until maybe about like 7 or 8 months ago, and kind of reflecting on the spending habits that I had and where I placed my money was all in areas to fix myself. I would constantly be spending money on like new clothes and food that I didn't even wear. It was just like a safety of knowing that I would buy like hair extensions when my hair was, I'm getting very girly here, but just so that you can understand it. And you know, I think I just didn't understand the relationship to how I felt about myself in correlation with worth and wealth at a deeper level of abundance, but like not necessarily, it can be monetarily as I'm saying it, but the abundance of who I am. And that's really, I think, what I am trying to uncover right now. Because kind of like you said, I'll go back to that story that you said, the 3-day weekend of, you know, sitting with the, you know, self-development like thing. I'm all about the self-development. I'll go there all day, every day. But if you were like, Elise, we're going to go to this 3-day finance conference, join me, I'd be like, fine. But like, I also know that hesitation and resistance is something that I want to understand more and lean into. And that's why I'm so beautifully a mirror that I think I perhaps maybe am ready to dive deeper into that aspect.
You know, now that you say that, I'm just experiencing a realization for myself right now at this moment. And that is how resistant I felt back at the beginning of that 3-day weekend class. I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want to attend. It was going to be a waste of time. And it's funny. I think it's the universe was saying, without me realizing it at that time, there's going to be something great on the other end of this weekend that you have no idea about. And I didn't consciously hear that voice at all. All I saw was 3 days of a waste of time, but maybe a happier girlfriend and my money back. That's all I saw. I didn't see what could possibly happen on the other end. And when we do things, you know, what I'm someone who I like to eat, you know, chips and things like that, because that's soothing. That makes me feel good at the moment. It makes me feel happy. But that's not an activity like attending a personal growth class for a weekend. That's not an activity like that turns me off. It turned me off then. It turned me on to open up a bag of Cheetos and scarf down a bag of Cheetos. I'd rather do that than attend a personal growth seminar. But my realization, what I'm getting at is that there's a difference between doing things to make you feel happy, but there's also doing things that can make you feel joy. And happiness, in my view, is very temporary. It's fleeting. It comes and it goes, but joy is something that's more permanent. And for us to experience joy in life, and I'm speaking just as a guy, I'm not a personal growth guru. This has been my experience. When I've got joy in my system, that's like a brick. It's not something that is fleeting. Joy is longer lasting, and I realize for me to get that joy in my life, I have to do things that I'm not comfortable with. That's the price to pay to get great things in life. So when you said that, Elise, it just made me consider, wow, that was my state of affairs back in 2017 before I took that class. And I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I did it, obviously. I wouldn't be on this podcast had it not been.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. Like I said, the universe kind of provides us mirrors for what we need at certain times. And like I said, I think that I think this is a pivotal point in Dan and I's. We've gone through a lot over the past 2 years. We kind of, just to give you a brief background, we're both from Massachusetts. We moved to California about 10 years ago, had a number of different jobs and things until Dan settled on, his company, Momentum Strength and Wellness, which I had joined as a nutrition coach. And we lived in San Francisco for a little while, LA for the majority of our time there. And just about 2 years ago, I would say nothing short of just like catastrophic family events, lots of deaths. My mother had numerous cancers, and we just had to come back to the East Coast to be with them. And we've been here much longer. And within that time, it has just I stopped doing the nutrition coaching. Business has kind of just been a little bit wonky, and I've poured my energy into the podcast and meeting people like this who have so graciously given me what I needed at certain times. But I think we're in the clear of everything settled with, family things, and we're headed back to California now at the end of next month. And kind of like that intuitive nature that I was talking about, that feeling of knowingness within us. It's like something big is going to happen when we get back there. It's almost like the hero's journey. We were just on an epic hero's journey for 2 years, and now we're kind of going back to California. And my resistance here, I'm using resistance and control in the kind of synonymous here. Like I want to control an outcome that I really don't know what's going to happen, because Dan and I are in a very different position and two different people after this last year. Now, I know that the things that we'll be doing business-wise, health-wise, podcast-wise will be similar, but there's areas and potential for growth. And I think finances is a big one, because we've both, actually, I don't want to speak for you. Let me speak for myself.
Okay.
I've, like I said, always had a very low self-worth, but to the point where it's just enough, right? I've never been homeless. Like I said, we don't own a home, but like we've always had apartments. I've graciously lived in my mother's and stepfather's home for the past few years. Like we've always been okay, but it's very much like just okay, almost like the paycheck to paycheck. We've got some savings, but the majority of it's going to be now gone towards this move. It's always just enough. And that's why I said I feel like a pivotal point where I'm seeing the correlation where I think or believe of myself is just enough. But I know deep down I'm worth and worthy of so much more.
Yes, you are.
And that's what I'm trying to tap into. That abundance, that like I said, and I want an abundance in all areas of my life, which I'm so grateful that you gave us this analogy of the peace of mind of the square, because I can't wait to dive deep within that to Dan and kind of use the numerology, because I know the money portion of it will be on the lesser end to the other ones. Like I feel like I'm soaring in health and and things like that, but I'm curious.
Well, it all comes down. A lot of this comes down to self-esteem in my view. And when it comes to money in particular, many people may say, well, I'll win the lottery one day, or I'll receive an inheritance from a long unknown great uncle from somewhere. And And it's okay to say dream those things. However, if you take a look at life, if you take a look at everything that happens in life, those examples are like on the extreme of the bell curve. Okay, I'm a left-brainer, so I'm comfortable with numbers and so on. And the chances are of people of inheriting money and winning the lottery and so on and so forth, so small. Does it happen? Yes, it happens, but it's not going to happen to you. So what that means is that our financial results, our life results, are all because of and thanks to what happens in the middle, day in and day out, what we're doing or what we're not doing. So when we pay attention to that, and if we recognize that we want to be better in some area of our life, whatever that is, then that means I've identified if I don't like the way my relationships are, or my health, or my money, I've identified a gap. I want to be here, but I'm here. So how come I'm not here already up here on the top? Because there's something missing, and what is missing may not immediately be recognizable, but I'm down here because of what I'm doing day in and day out, what's happening in between, what my habits are, what my actions are, what the actions that I don't take are. And when we add those up, we can figuratively create our own self-esteem score if we want to. Meaning that just imagine if there was such a thing as a self-esteem thermometer, all right, that we could stick under our tongue and measure, and voila, there was a number like the credit score. It was a number, say it's a number between 1 and 100. 100 means I just feel the best about myself and I'm worthy and I'm completely deserving and so on. And number 1 is quite the opposite. Just imagine if we could measure our self-esteem like that. Wouldn't you agree that a person who's living a life that's got a self-esteem score of, say, 87 is living a far greater life than the person who's scoring a 31, right? So to kind of put it in a concrete way, that, self-esteem, when I first discovered this, kind of nebulous. It's kind of hard because, again, I'm a left-brainer. I kind of like concrete things. I wish I was as creative as the two of you. I'll bet you guys are far more creative than I am, but that's another topic for another day, maybe. But I just need concrete, measurable things. And I see my own life results as a way for me to determine, am I doing the right things day in and day out? Or am I not doing the right things day in and day out? In relation to what my life goals are, in relation to how I feel about myself, in relation to what I want to have in my life. And if I've identified a gap between where I want to be and where I am, then that's a self-awareness moment for me to say to myself, okay, I need to be changing something then. What is that? I don't know, but it doesn't have to be a huge change. But I've been planting seeds in my life for 10 years, 20 years, and they're all been germinating over time. And here are my life results right now. I'm on this podcast. If you were to ask me to be on your podcast 7 years ago, I would say, what? No, I have nothing to offer. I have nothing to share. My words are not worthy. All of these limiting self-belief things, right? And those were the seeds that I was planting that were creating those results in my life. And now I'm recognized, wow, I need to change some things. I do want to get married. I do want to have an incredible relationship with my children. I do want to have better health. I wasn't having all of those things at that time. And I can proudly say that my life is far better today than 7 years ago. And when I focused on how I'm showing up and the actions that I'm taking and the actions that I'm not taking, those are those seeds that I'm planting. I'm still planting them today, right? And the more that I can do those seeds, that are not so comfortable, I know that on the other end of those uncomfortable seeds, there's going to be something great that's going to bloom. It can be great to something blossom. That I'm not planting the Cheetos bag seeds anymore. I'm planting the hot yoga seeds. I'm planting the greens seeds. I'm doing those things that I didn't do a long time ago, and I'm just so grateful that I'm aware of that now, because I want to be as good of a husband as I possibly can be, as good as of a dad, as good as a business owner, as good as a neighbor, as good as an uncle, and so on. And the only way I can do that is by improving and working on myself.
Oh, I just got chills. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. It's stories like this that I think will resonate, because it's resonating with me. And I know it's going to resonate with the listeners, because we're human.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to be a human. I've said that multiple times, and it is. And what so beautifully, as I mentioned, I think earlier, is life is presenting us with opportunities to grow and learn. It's literally a feedback loop. And you said it beautifully. I think you posed, and I would love to touch upon this, that when you started tapping into this self-esteem, I think your net worth like astronomically went up, like huge percentage wise. And you found your wife, and you have all of this now blissful, joyful experiences that are felt on that deeper level. It's like yeah, clapping, like, great, do more of this. And then to the kind of opposite, which again is not necessarily a bad or wrong thing. I really don't like to use those words. If something maybe isn't in alignment with the highest potential of yourself, the universe is also going to say, like X here, like, no, don't go that direction. Something will go wrong, or maybe a business deal falls through, or something. But again, it's perhaps a blessing in disguise. The universe saying, let's redirect your energy in a more positive, productive area.
Yeah. When you feel great about yourself or greater about yourself, then great things can happen. The truth is when we were all born, just consider in your mind, just who is someone that you know, or someone that you know of, who is already achieved or accomplished whatever important goal that you have in your life, whatever that is. I don't know what that is. If just bring to mind that person so you can see them in your mind. So if you know that person, or you know of that person who's done fill in the blank, then my question to myself, because I've done this exercise, is why not me? Why not me? Because the truth of the matter is, on day one, we are born as tiny human beings with all of the magnificent qualities and characteristics that a person has. Just think of the list for me, the qualities of a baby boy or baby girl that's 2 years old: honest, courageous, brave, very few worries in life, happy,
curious,
curious.
Yeah.
List all those qualities. And you know what? I've got those qualities too. And Dan and Elise have these qualities, and the listener has these qualities. And I know that because you were born, because we were all born with these qualities. Well, what happens? Life goes on. Life happens. Events happen. And when we run into, whether it's small or big, we run into these life events, that kind of puts a lid on these qualities that are just inside us. And it doesn't happen right away. It does happen over time. And it happens when you're just not realizing it. Because like you said, Elise, it happens when we're children. By the time we're age 18, 95% of our belief systems are in place. And that's all based on our life experiences and our influences that we have. So good and bad, it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's just, this is the way that we are. This is how we're made up. So when I recognize these limiting beliefs about myself, I'm speaking as Rick, okay? I'm not worthy to hang out with people of higher level than me, or higher stature than me, or whatever that is. I'm not worthy to be working in my business with high net worth people. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve working with people who are extremely successful. those were the voices that were speaking in my mind then, long ago, right?
Mhm.
And the truth is, that's all wrong. It's all incorrect. Of course, I deserve all that. Of course, I'm worthy of that. We're all worthy of these things. We're all worthy of these things. And when I'm focusing more on feeding my self-esteem, going back to topic at hand, then inside these windows start to open back up. That's inside myself. And behind the windows are these great qualities. This bravery, the courage, the honesty, the happiness, the joyness, the curiosity, the all those that have been hiding for so long, now they're showing up. And when they show up on a day-to-day basis, just watch the trajectory of your life change in the direction that you want. Whew, okay, let me take a breath.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was beautiful. And I feel like the image that you just presented with the window and it slightly opening and opening further and having all these inherent qualities that have just been pushed down or locked away coming out is just magical. That's awesome.
Yeah. I also love before you used the analogy of like planting seeds. And I think it's really cool because things don't grow immediately. So I think a lot of times people might have high self-esteem for a day and they get really excited and motivated and they plant a bunch of seeds, but then they don't tend to the seeds. And I know I've been guilty of this in the past of like getting really excited and motivated and I'll have a great idea and then falling back into the old subconscious patterns, forgetting to water those seeds and make sure they get sunlight and taking care of them. And then being like, well, it doesn't work. Like I had high self-esteem and it didn't do anything, but
when you fertilize a garden, what grows? Flowers grow. When you don't fertilize the garden, what grows then? The answer is weeds. And that's not what we want. We're either growing or we're decaying. There's nothing in between. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I'm 59 years old, and as I get more into my older years, I recognize, of course, time is extremely short and extremely valuable. And I want to make sure that the remainder of my lifespan is knocking out of the park. I always want to find myself at a peak the next year and the next year and the next year. I just don't want it. I don't want it to stop. I just don't want it to stop.
That's
and
amazing.
I hope that everyone else listening to this has a similar energy about them, because it's completely up to them. It's completely up to all of us to decide, where do we want our lever to point, in the decay area or the growth area? And I'm choosing the growth area.
Beautiful.
What have you found, I guess, with either with yourself or with what you've seen in other people or what you've learned, like how to sort of cultivate this self-esteem? Like for people who don't have self-esteem, who don't really like themselves or love themselves, like how do you take those steps?
Take a look at your environment. What are you surrounding yourself with? That I heard a long time ago, and this applies here to your question. If you're in a group of 5 people who are millionaires and you're the 6th person, you're headed in the direction of being a millionaire. If you're in a group of 5 people who are thieves and robbers and you're the 6th person, you're going to become a thief and a robber also. So who you hang out with is who you become. And who you hang out with is the people that you speak with, the people that you interact with. It's what you read, it's what you listen to, it's what you put inside the gray zones between your ears called your mind and your brain. That's where all this action happens. That's the control center. And what you feed it is going to have a strong, huge influence on what comes out. What comes out in terms of how you say things, how you show up, the actions, the interactions that you have. So your environment is extremely important. I would start there for sure. The people that you spend time with, what you're reading, what YouTube videos are you watching? Are you using your car as a place for another personal growth journey by listening to podcasts and so on? Are you listening to this podcast?
Right? Yeah.
All right. So it's very, very small things, very small thing. Are you taking a personal development course? I mean, that could be also a strong ingredient, but what you're surrounding yourself with will be a huge, if not the strongest influence on what your life results will be.
Oh, beautifully
Yeah,
put.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like that was, as we're wrapping up here, just a wonderful way to kind of sign off. But we always open the space to make sure that if there was anything left unsaid that you feel is, at your heart, I think, if you don't mind, one of the things that like has helped me on this, I guess, self-esteem and self-worth and self-discovery journey, because you beautifully said it before, Rick, a few minutes ago, is just becoming aware of your thoughts and really being the observer of them. Because like you said, at such young ages, we're imposed with limitations and conditions. And again, not right or wrong, you're growing up in family, in schools, and if you're a religious establishment, just friends, and you're told who to be or what not to be, how to look, what to do. And then those thoughts are so repetitive, they become beliefs. Beliefs are just thoughts that are over and over and over. And like you said, then you hit 18 and you're just going along with the masses doing all these things. And I feel like I'm 37 and I'm just discovering who I am. Really, that's a huge part of this thing. And as you start listening to that voice within your head, like saying, like, is this thought even mine? Is this thought even true? And like, where did it come from? Because where on earth, why would I think I'm unworthy of having money? Why would I think I'm unworthy of traveling the world? Why would I think I'm unworthy of the most loving relationship? Where did that come from? And if it's not yours, this is so empowering. You are able to transform it and change into the version of yourself you'd like to become.
Yeah. So true. So true. Just to be vulnerable again, I've had this money scarcity belief for the longest time, and that served me very well. That helped me save versus spend, right? It helped me buy that house at age 22. It helped me do a lot of things. It helped me build this business. And there's goods and bads with all belief systems, right? Yet, because I also had this belief of I'm not worthy, I don't deserve, for the longest time. And I think all of us have that ghost inside us at some level, and we always will, forever and ever and ever. It's just a matter of handling it and dealing with it and just telling it whatever it is. Oh, I'm glad that you said that. Let me just put you over here on the bench and let me continue on with my life. All right. So I'm not so afraid of spending money on myself anymore. I've proven to myself that I can accumulate. I've proven to myself that I can save. So now it's time to, travel and do things and not be such a Scrooge any longer. There, I said
and
it.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right, and enjoy it. Exactly.
Have you found that as you started to spend more on yourself and kind of be a little bit more free with the way you use your money, that the money came in easier as well?
Okay.
Yes. No, don't spend because it's not going to come back. No, that has not been the case. That has been the case. I am at a peak when it comes to my money right now, and I can see me keeping on going. And this just happens. All right. This just happens. So it's called currency for a reason. It's a current. It's not meant to be staying inside my pockets. It's supposed to responsibly, okay? It's supposed to be in the system, taking it out and spending it on things that should be wise. I'm not encouraging people just to frivolously spend like tomorrow's the last day. There's a balance here, all right? But by being too much of a tight wad, then I missed out on a lot. And I recognize that now. So I wanted to comment, Elise, your words self-aware, those are two very, very powerful words that could serve all of us for a very, very, very long time.
Yes. And it's something that I dabble in every single day. And I think that that's
where it begins.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Oh, Rick, I feel like There's so much more. Maybe we can do a part 2, perhaps after we get to
Maybe we can.
California and give you like a new life update, because oh my gosh, I have so much more to talk about. But like I said, we're just an absolute pleasure to sit down. We covered so much. We went deep. But is there anything that you feel we missed or didn't touch upon?
No, we
Okay.
keep on going, but
Wonderful.
it's all good.
Rick, if you would please, you seem to be a wealth of knowledge in finance. You're on this personal growth journey too. Like, where can people find you if we could direct them possibly?
My website is salmeronfinancial.com.
Perfect.
Connect with me on social media. You can just search my name on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, and I can engage with people that way too. If you're looking for what I'll call mini light bulb moments, okay, to help shine an additional light in an angle inside that black gray box called our money, that's hard to see sometimes. If you're looking for mini aha moments, that you can check out my posts on social media, and hopefully that will.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Amazing.
we'll link to those so people can find you easily.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for joining
so
us
much.
today.
This is great.
Thanks for having me.